Prelude to Invasion, Kublai Khan's Ambitions. In the 13th century, the Mongol Empire stood as the most formidable power in the world, having conquered vast swaths of Asia and even parts of Europe. At its helm was Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, who sought to extend his dominion further east to the islands of Japan. The Mongols had already subjugated Korea and China, forcing their rulers into submission. But Japan, a land of fierce warriors and an insular culture, remained an untamed prize. Kublai Khan sent emissaries to Japan in 1268, demanding that the island nation become a vassal state. The Japanese, under the rule of the Kamakura shogunate, refused. With no tribute paid and his demands ignored, Kublai Khan turned to war. The First Mongol Invasion, 1274. In 1274, Kublai Khan launched the first of two invasions, assembling a fleet of around 900 ships and 30,000 men, Mongols, Koreans, and Chinese conscripts. The Mongol army landed in Hakata Bay on Kyushu, Japan's southernmost main island. The samurai, who were accustomed to individual combat and ritualistic dueling, were caught off guard by the Mongols' organized warfare. The invaders used gunpowder weaponry, including explosive bombs, and employed highly disciplined cavalry units. Despite their tactical advantages, the Mongols did not achieve a decisive victory. The samurai, though initially overwhelmed, adapted quickly, using guerrilla tactics and nighttime raids to harass the invaders. The Mongols had no intention of a prolonged war, but before they could establish a strong foothold, nature intervened. A sudden typhoon, later called the Kamikaze, divine wind, devastated the Mongol fleet. Facing heavy losses and an uncertain supply line, the Mongols retreated. The Second Mongol Invasion, 1281. Undeterred by his failure, Kublai Khan spent the next 7 years preparing for a second, much larger invasion. By 1281, he had amassed a colossal force, more than 4,000 ships and around 140,000 men. This time, the invasion force split into two. One fleet launched from Korea, while the other set sail from southern China. Their plan was to converge on Kyushu and crush Japan under their sheer numbers. However, the Japanese had not been idle during these years. Expecting another Mongol attack, they had reinforced their coastal defenses, building walls along Hakata Bay and mobilizing their samurai forces. When the Mongols landed, they met fierce resistance. Unlike in 1274, the samurai were now well prepared for Mongol tactics and engaged in brutal combat, preventing the invaders from making significant gains. For weeks, the two sides clashed in a desperate struggle. The Mongols, despite their overwhelming numbers, found it difficult to break through Japanese defenses. Japanese forces engaged in skirmishes, employing hit-and-run tactics that took advantage of their superior knowledge of the terrain. The Mongols, on the other hand, were unfamiliar with prolonged battles in enemy territory and struggled with logistics. The battle turned into a war of attrition, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Then, once again, nature turned against the Mongols. A massive typhoon struck the Mongol fleet, annihilating a vast portion of their ships and drowning tens of thousands of soldiers. Those who survived faced slaughter at the hands of the waiting samurai. The invasion had ended in disaster, and the Mongol threat to Japan was permanently thwarted. The aftermath and legacy. The failed invasions left a deep impact on both Japan and the Mongol Empire. For Japan, the victory reinforced the belief that they were divinely protected, a sentiment that would influence Japanese nationalism for centuries. The word kamikaze would later be invoked during World War II by Japanese pilots who carried out suicide missions, believing in the same divine wind that had once saved their ancestors. The Kamakura shogunate having repelled the mightiest empire of its time, solidified its authority. However, the financial burden of defending Japan had weakened the shogunate, leading to economic strain and, eventually, internal conflict that would contribute to its downfall in the following century. For the Mongol Empire, the defeat marked the limits of their expansion. The enormous cost of the failed invasions drained the empire's resources and weakened Kublai Khan's reign. The Mongols never attempted another invasion of Japan, and this failure, combined with internal struggles, contributed to the eventual decline of the Yuan dynasty. The loss also tarnished the Mongols' reputation of being an unstoppable force, and their failed naval campaigns exposed vulnerabilities in their ability to sustain large-scale overseas invasions. A clash of worlds, Mongol power versus samurai spirit. The Mongol invasions of Japan remain one of history's most dramatic encounters between two vastly different warrior cultures. The Mongols, masters of conquest and empire-building, met an island nation that refused to surrender. Though outnumbered and outmatched in technology, the samurai, aided by the forces of nature, turned back one of the greatest empires in history. The Mongols, known for their adaptability, had never faced a force quite like the samurai, who fought with a combination of skill, honor, and sheer determination. The encounters between these two warrior cultures were not just battles of arms, but of philosophies, nomadic expansionism versus a deeply rooted warrior ethos. In the end, the Mongols, despite their military might, could not conquer Japan, and the samurai proved that an unyielding spirit, combined with strategic preparedness and perhaps a touch of divine intervention, could overcome even the greatest of threats. The tale of the Mongol invasions remains one of the most significant military episodes in Japanese history, a testament to resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. The storm that saved Japan became a legend, and the samurai who defended their homeland became immortalized as symbols of courage and unwavering determination. The battle-tested warriors who stood against the Mongols shaped Japan's martial traditions for generations, ensuring that their legacy would live on in the centuries to come.